Hey y'all, my name is Morgan Vaughn. I'm a student here in the Masters of Health Science program. My presentation is titled Scientific Management and Artificial Intelligence. This presentation will focus on an article that I found that explains how artificial intelligence may be helping us be more efficient in our jobs rather than stealing our place in the workforce. Now we'll move on to the presentation agenda. I've created this agenda to show what we're going over and help us be more organized during the presentation. First, I'll start with an article synopsis. Then I'll move on to information on Frederick Taylor and his time study, along with Frank Gilbreth and his motion study. Then we'll relate all of this information back to the article, and then at the end, I'll relate everything back to my career and profession. So let's get started with the article synopsis. The article that I've selected was published by Digital Trends and was written by Luke Dormel. The article is titled, Taylorism is Back. Instead of stealing jobs, what if artificial intelligence is just telling us how to do them better? The article highlights on the time study from Frederick Taylor's work, the popular company Amazon and another company called CourseSmart are both utilizing the fundamentals of the time study done by Taylor. The article explains how Amazon is using GPS devices to guide their product fillers on the most efficient route around the warehouse to fulfill orders. This device always monitors their steps and their pace of work so they can be given real-time feedback throughout the day. CourseSmart is developing a digital aid to monitor how students are studying. The premise behind this advancement is to allow teachers to see what students who make the best grades are doing in regards to their studies, so they can then take these patterns and teach them to students who are not doing as well. The article also points out how Frank and Lillian Gilbreth's motion study is being used to further aid in physical labor efficiency. The University of Waterloo is working on a project that will entail how brick masons wearing a sensor suit are working based on the sensors monitoring their motions on the job. They're studying how the best brick masons move throughout the entire process so that this can be captured and taught to the newer, more novice masons. Their goal is to reduce the effort of the bricklaying process while increasing the efficiency of the job. The dean of the university told the New York Times that these digital tracking systems are similar to Big Brother, but with better intent. Now that we have an overview of the article, I will go over Frederick Taylor's contribution to scientific management. Frederick Winslow Taylor was born in 1856 in Germantown, Pennsylvania. He graduated at the very top of his class, but he declined his acceptance to Harvard, and instead he began an apprenticeship as a machinist and a pattern maker for Enterprise Hydraulic Works, and that launched his path into becoming an engineer. During his 4 years as an apprentice, he began to realize some of the downfalls of factory work, such as the poor working conditions, the poor management, and the tense relationship between the laborers and the managers. After his apprenticeship, he took a position as a laborer at Midvale Steel Company, where he quickly climbed the ladder from laborer to chief engineer. While he was at Midvale, he earned a degree in mechanical engineering by doing a home study. And just like in his apprenticeship, Taylor began to see many of the inefficiencies in the way the laborers were performing their jobs and also being compensated for their work. So he set out to define what we now know as scientific management, which is the application of the scientific method to establish the best and most efficient way to perform a job or task. He also completed his time study, where he measured the time in which work ought to be completed if the most efficient and best route was taken by the laborer. So unlike Charles Babbage's work, where he measured how long it took workers to perform a task, Taylor measured how long it should take them to perform the task, and not how long it was taking them. And I will highlight more on the time study and the relation to the article later in the presentation, but for now we'll move on to Frank Gilbreth. Frank Bunker Gilbreth was born in 1868 in Fairfield, Maine. He and his wife Lillian had many of the same views as Frederick Taylor. Their main goal was to eliminate waste and figure out the one best way of performing a task. They believed that their one best way principle could be utilized in just about every aspect of your life. You could use it at your house, you can use it for the government, the workforce, and even in your own personal life. Frank Gilbreth is most popular for his work study on motion. He started the study when he himself became a bricklayer, and as he was training on the job, he noticed there were three distinct ways in which bricklayers laid brick. Number one is when they were working kind of slow, being a little bit more lazy, they laid brick one way. Number two is when they were working quick. And number three is when they were teaching an apprentice how to lay brick. Gilbreth was determined that two of these were incorrect and only one was the right way to lay brick. And he set out to determine the best and the most efficient way to do this task. In the beginning, he worked very slowly to determine the best way to lay the brick. He reduced the number of motions from 18 motions to 6 motions, and he began to lay 350 bricks an hour rather than the expected 175. By doing this, he quickly climbed the ladder of the construction business and he opened his own company. He kept workers involved and enticed in being efficient by rewarding $10 each month to the worker who had the best idea to increase efficiency. During this time, he and his wife also developed a cyclograph, which was the use of small lights positioned on a worker's clothing, and then they took film of him as he was performing the motions so they could go back and watch the film and study it. And I'll further explain how the motion study and the cyclograph are important in relation to my article. So the article relation. The points that I have taken away from this week's reading that relate to the article I have chosen are Taylor's time study and Gilbreth's motion study. The workers at Amazon are utilizing the time study method by using the GPS system to provide a more efficient way to fill orders. The GPS allows for the quickest route to be taken. It helps reduce fatigue in the warehouse workers. And the University of Waterloo is utilizing the motion study by testing the sensor suit on construction workers. Their goal is to increase productivity and reduce musculoskeletal injuries from the repetitive motions of the job. So how does this all relate to my career? I have explained the relevance of the article, and I've also made a few notes about how all of this relates to my profession. I'm a radiation therapist at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, and for those of you that don't know, a radiation therapist delivers treatments to cancer patients. And during my job, every day I treat about 35 cancer patients, and they each have their own limitations when it comes to mobility. Some are less mobile than others, but all of them have some sort of limited mobility. The sensor suit would be a great way to have a design for scrubs to reduce workplace injuries for healthcare workers. The time study method with the GPS device would also be a helpful tool for our physicians to use when we page them to various areas of our department. We page them for a variety of reasons, and they all have different urgencies and importance. So it would be nice if we had a way for them to visualize where each page was in the department and the most efficient sequence to get to the most urgent cases, where the less urgent ones, and the best route they could take to complete every task in a timely fashion. And we've reached the end of my presentation. I thank y'all for your time and your attention. On the next slide, you will see my references for this presentation. Please leave any questions that you have in the comments of this post, and I will do my very best to answer them. Thank y'all again.